Redditors who have decided they don't want to have children. What is your reasoning? Serious. I had to raise my brothers. I got the free trial and want none of that it. Yep, same here. Raised my 2 younger sisters. And my parents just can't understand why I am not giving them grandchildren. Yeah, been there, done that. No thank you. To add to my answer in this thread, I too looked after my little brother when he and I were younger. I'd do anything for him, don't get me wrong, but that's enough kids in my life. It is my belief that if you are going to have kids you should love them unconditionally no matter what. I have conditions. Yes, the biggest thing that makes me question wanting kids was that I really don't think I could handle being a parent to a child with disabilities. I know I would regret having children if that was the case, and I feel like such a horrible person for thinking that way. I actually have the same fear and the same personal reaction to feeling that. I don't believe we are bad people, we just aren't the right people for that job. It takes a certain type of person to raise a child with disabilities, and I know for a fact I'm not one of them. It's just us understanding our limitations and not doing anything to hurt other people. It's hard, because I know the chances are pretty small of it actually happening. But it's still a chance, and I'm not sure if I should be a parent until I can better accept that chance. My niece gave birth to a little girl with Down syndrome. She and her husband had split up during the pregnancy. She already had a 5-year-old son. She did not know the baby had Downs until the birth. When I visited her in the hospital and saw how she looked at the baby, I knew she was dealing with the realization that she did not have what that little girl needed. She gave her to a couple she called her moms. Her own mum had died of an OD 10 years before. That couple had experience and love overflowing to give. One had actually been a teacher for special ed children and knew what the baby needed. They actually lived together for a couple years until my niece was able to move out with her son and get her own house. When the little one was 3, they officially adopted her and added Treasure as a middle name. I do not judge my niece for what she did. She did the best thing for her daughter, who is now someone else's treasure. Good for your niece. I'm sure it was difficult, but it was the right thing to do. I like sleep, a clean house, and not having to be responsible for someone else's emotions. I can barely handle my own emotions. What would I do with a young child that needs, well, whatever a young child needs? I can barely handle my own frickin' health. What would I do with a small spawn that needs 3x the I give myself? I believe that children are a very serious and irreversible lifelong commitment, and that the majority of society is wrong to consider them the default option rather than a conscious choice you make for good reasons. With that belief in mind, I simply have no compelling reason for why I should have children, and so I don't have them, because they should be an opt-in rather than an opt-out. The majority of society is wrong to consider them the default option rather than a conscious choice you make for good reasons. Way too many people have kids simply because it's what you're supposed to do without any second thoughts. Society is slowly moving past this mindset, but it's far from gone, sadly. That was my mother. She told me she had me because she wasn't sure what to do with herself, and having a baby seemed like the next logical step. I only exist because my mother didn't know what a hobby was. My sister had not 1, but 2 kids because she was lonely. Don't get me wrong, my nephews are adorable, smart, amazing, fun kids, but she has to deal with their deadbeat father on the daily and leaves with my retired parents because she still has to work and needs childcare. Love this. I feel like so many people have kids who just absolutely shouldn't. The majority of society is wrong to consider them the default option rather than a conscious choice you make for good reasons. Thank you. Simply put, kids annoy me and I probably wouldn't make a good father. Same here. Worked at multiple summer camps and children's places. Did it for experience and thought it would be fun. Kids honestly hate me and I'm fine with it. I've worked at a lot of camps and kids generally love me. I love them too. But I wouldn't want to be a parent to any of them. That's an entirely different level of responsibility that does not appeal to me. I like coming home and being able to enjoy doing nothing. So many parents are uneducated, itty individuals with no morals who don't discipline their kids and can't afford a Twinkie yet think they're the exception to the rule. I feel like saying, no, you shouldn't have been a parent and you're an idiot for thinking otherwise. I hate when people tell me I'd be a great parent. Like, how would you know? The only thing worse off than you is your kids. But of course I can't say that. People say I'm great with kids. Shy ones seem to take to me for some reason and say I'd be a great father. I correct them by saying I'm a great uncle. I hang out, spoil them, then walk away at the end of the visit. It's probably because you don't force yourself on them or try to force them to not be shy and just leave them be. I don't want them. You'd think this reason would be enough. Shut up. Being pregnant doesn't sound like a good time. I'm going to be 30 this year and have yet to experience being stable with my finances. I want to do fun things for me when I am financially able to, not skip over me and go straight to kids. I have a nephew and I love him so much. Plus I get to leave him after a few hours. As my stepmother and I always say, kiss them once when they arrive and twice when they leave. Pregnancy grosses me out to the extreme. I actually love babies, but the whole process is so unsettling and icky to think about for me. Hate how everyone forces the idea it should be beautiful and magical. It's a draining and traumatic process and women die from it even in the modern world. There's a lot of misinformation around pregnancy too. Women aren't educated about the risks and about the effect it will have on your body even if you have a successful birth. Mums get blindsided to find out that they've ripped vagina to arsehole or that they struggle with incontinence 4 years after the birth. It really saddens me to hear parents say that they weren't warned, and apparently the reason we don't educate women is because if we did, pregnancy would be a lot less popular. Most people don't realize how high the percentage is of women who have physical complications from delivery. It's like this societal agreement to keep it hushed. Not to mention miscarriage. No one truly appreciates how common it is until they realize they and everyone they talk to all have friends and family who struggled with it. Exactly. When I was a kid I always thought that pregnancies are not a big deal and that the worst thing that can happen are the morning throwing up sessions. I still had that itching feeling that when I grow up one day I do not want to go through pregnancy or childbirth or having and raising children. And then I started hearing about women's personal experiences with pregnancy, childbirth etc. There was not one normal story. All of them were straight out of horror movies. Also, when I was a kid and my sibling came along, we all used to sleep in one room. The sibling would wake up 3-4 times a night, so we would all wake up. I was 4 and it was just horrible. Then when I was a teen, the only panic attack I ever had happened to me simply because I heard a bit too much about childbirth and babies etc. And that's when I realized that my subconsciousness is telling me something and that I will not have kids. I don't even want a goldfish because it's just more unnecessary responsibility. I'll wait for a few years and probably I won't change my mind, so I'll get a hysterectomy or one of those procedures with which I'll be 100% sure that I can't get pregnant. Thank you so much for saying that. Pregnancy is so gross, oh my god. I don't like children, but that's the least concern with the whole thing. People get insane when I tell them that being pregnant is a risky traumatic experience that lasts months and is so stressful for the body and mind. Don't even let me start about breastfeeding. Few years ago, my aunt told me her baby literally sucked her entire nipple out. It broke the skin or something. She said it like oh it was fine. I mean, no, your boob is ruined and that it still hurts like hell years later. No kids for me, thanks. Even if someday I actually do change my mind, adoption is the way. Go to avoid that 9 months like the plague. I intentionally stopped answering this question a long time ago. Nobody ever asks people who do want children what is their reasoning. I could give you any number of reasons ranging from my childhood wasn't that happy to I just don't see my life panning out that way, but when you get right down to it, I just don't want to and I don't understand people who do. I feel this so hard. It's so difficult to explain to people that the lack of desire to have a child should be enough, even without justification. If I don't feel like I want kids, then I shouldn't have kids. As someone who wants kids very badly one day, I think parenting should be an opt-in, not an opt-out. It shouldn't be the default. It upsets me when people get pregnant by mistake, shrug, and just decide to keep it. I believe children should be wanted, and, most of the time, planned. When having kids just becomes a thing to do or a part of life, kids grow up with less than stellar parents who half-ass the job of raising a child. It makes me angry. I once met a group of 4 women and 2 of them had what they called oops babies, and one of the other said her IUD didn't work so now I have my son. Shrugs. I was like, you made people by accident. I wanna enjoy my life and be free. Have my money for myself and buy whatever I want. There are enough people on earth who want children. If everyone would have some we would just overpopulate. However, I wouldn't say no to a partner. A girlfriend that accepts me the way I am and accepts my hobbies. Completely agree. Expensive. Big commitment. Restraining. Extra anxiety. And why not have a dog or something? I like kids and think they're cute. So I was like, maybe I really do want kids. Then I saw a dog and got 100% more excited than I ever am upon seeing a kid. I think that's a pretty solid sign. Exactly my point. I love the idea of kids, but I feel like a husky or Shiba would bring me more joy and cost less.